Bruce Carney with Carney Family Farms. What we do here, what we are, is basically a multi-generation farming operation with now 4 generations involved. So my mom, my generation, my kids, and got 7 grandkids. What we're starting with here is a degraded resource. And I'm talking about soil, environment, water quality, multiple things across the spectrum of the environment. What we try to do is look at regenerating our soils with the practices that we do. Basically, we're a protein operation. We raise beef, pork, sheep, poultry, and all those are as natural as we can out on grass. Obviously, we feed pigs corn. They're not a ruminant animal that can live on forage. But we try to do everything as natural as we possibly can. Stay away from GMOs and chemicals and pesticides and that sort of stuff. We get into soil health a little bit. Just adaptive grazing, the way we graze our animals. Just putting the animals in the right place at the right time for a specific objective outcome of it. It could be you have weeds somewhere, so you tighten those animals up really tight on that area and manipulate that weed population with animal impact, tromping the weeds down, getting other forages started, things like that. So, or maybe it's a wildlife issue. Maybe you want to keep them out of a certain area because you have nesting going on, bird nesting and such like that. So there's multiple ways that you can look at adaptive grazing, but basically it's putting the animals in the right place at the right time. In soil health, the biggest thing I think that we look at here is organic matter. Our organic matter in most of our land today is 1-2%. If you just raise your organic matter 1%, that holds like 27,000 gallons of water. So look, what could that do if we raise organic matter by 1% across every acre with the flood control that we need? All the flooding that's going on today could just be held in the land where it fell, as opposed to running off and draining it as quickly as we can. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all those things. With 1% organic matter, you get 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen. With 1% organic matter, you get 4.5 to 6% of phosphorus, or 10 to 40%, or 10 to 40 pounds of potassium, and 2 to 3 pounds of sulfur per acre over the course of a year. It will release that naturally, which goes back to the cut down on fertilizer, cut down on chemicals, do all those things with soil health. You can there's multiple benefits to eliminating some of these things, and tillage is a big piece. I mean, tillage basically it destroys your soil structure. It burns up your organic matter. So if we can just go to a no-till system or a minimum till system, something less than what we do today, can all attribute to that. Soil health and organic matter. Add diversity to your system. So if we could just go to, as opposed to the corn and bean rotation that most of the crop is in, a 3 to a 4 crop rotation. So throw oats and hay and some small grains or something back into that. Perennial pastures, which is what we do. We don't do any row crop on the farm. I try to, anytime I interseed, I try to do warm season grasses, cool season stuff, not just grasses, legumes, brassicas, broadleaves, multiple species of everything. You get the diversity of the root systems. Some of them have a taproot that goes down. They're all going to bring up different nutrients from the soil. At different depth, from different profiles in the soil. They're going to bring up different soils and weeds. Everybody's, we can't have any weeds in our corn and beans, and to me, it's not a weed on my farm unless it's there for a whole year and a cow hasn't ate it. Then maybe it's a weed to me. Diversity is big, and I think diversity you'll find they talk about. You can talk about in diversity in animals. Animals all eat different things. So multi-species grazing is another aspect of soil health. You can, your sheep are going to eat a little bit more browse than a cow is. A cow's going to graze. You can go to goats, and they're going to do like all browse if they can, off of brush and weeds and that type of stuff. So you can throw all different kinds of animals out there and get different impacts on the land as well. Reduction in chemicals, we've talked about a couple of reasons why, and the organic matter can help relieve the fertilizer and chemical. I think that's another aspect of soil health, is to try and eliminate, at least reduce, and then maybe eliminate some of the chemicals and pesticides and things that we use out there. And I think it's proven that you can, after you do it for a long enough period, that we can reduce some of that stuff. Rotations break pest cycles. Fertilizers, you could throw in organic fertilizers, use animal manures from confinements, or just put your animals out on the land for your fertilizer, as opposed to, but you have to have animals on the land to do that, and we don't seem to want to be diversified on a farm at all. We're going to specialize now and only grow monocultures in one crop. But I'm not sure everybody understands what walked off the farm when animals walked off the farm. It's a huge resource that we've replaced with commercial fertilizers that don't work. I know when I put animal manure out here, I can tell the difference in that field for years. I've had, when I first come out here, seeded alfalfa fields down behind, spreading beef manure on the field, and an alfalfa crop lasted like 6-7 years, as opposed to 3 or 4 that they normally do. So I think it's huge. Organic fertilizers are huge. Cover crops, another big one that we recycle. They just recycle nutrients, pick up nutrients, as opposed to letting them run off in the water and flood off into soil. You're picking those up. You're holding the soil in place with cover crops. Multiple benefits to cover crops, along with building the organic matter that we talked about, recycling those nutrients that you're going to pick them up in them plants. They're going to die. They're going to recycle back, come back for the next year's crop, hold the soil in place. Multiple benefits there. And I guess then maybe the fifth practice of soil health is just the animals, putting animals back on the land to recycle. You put them out there on a crop residue situation, and they can take a lot of that crop residue that you have year after year and turn that into usable fertilizer for your next cash crop. A lot faster than if it just lays there and recycles and turns itself. Cattle in a no-till situation, I think, is really good for the breaking up the not compaction, but capping on the ground. This ground a lot of times will just get a seal off on the top, and water will run off as opposed to soak in. And I think the hooves of them animals can help break that up, get infiltration going down through the soil. The manure, the urine, the saliva they put out there, all the bacteria and the organisms in the soil are the same bacteria and organisms that are in the rumen of the cow. So all that stuff is just putting that biology back in the ground that chemicals, fertilizers, all those things are destroying, are killing, that are in the soil that they're using out there. So I think that just helps regenerate your soil, put that back in. There's multiple aspects of just the livestock being out there. I know a lot of farmers are really concerned about compaction with livestock, and we done a 4-year cover crop, grazing cover crops on a field, and compared it to a field that we didn't have any grazing, just no grazing and no cover crops on, and we had less compaction on the field with the cows and the grazing than we did with the no cover crops and no grazing. And I think that has to do with why, because all the roots from that cover crop in the ground. You get a huge root mass there from a rye cover crop or a mixed cover crop, right? That's supporting that animal, as opposed to nothing out there but just soil and wet soil, and you get more compaction that way. So another aspect there maybe that I didn't talk about a little bit was just the soil, leaving residue on top of the soil to cover the soil, keep the soil cooler, protect the soil from the sun, Otherwise, it can heat up to quite high temperatures and kill all the microbiology in the soil. It also holds the soil in place. If you have all that residue on top of the ground, it relieves the impact of the rain. When it hits the soil, it hits the residue on top of the ground as opposed to the soil, and starts erosion and moving soil around. So there's a lot of aspects to the impact. Plus, just to feed the biology in the soil. It will recycle that way. The worms are going to come up and eat and pull stuff down and get all recycled. So I think it's important to leave that armor on the soil as well.